Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today it's time for another Drum Prof Reacts video. This is where I'm reacting to educational material out there on YouTube. I guess there's a ton of reaction videos, people reacting to concerts, to music, but I do it a bit differently here. I react to educational content and try to analyze that. I am myself a longtime drum teacher. Right now I teach at the Joseph Haydn University in Eisenstadt near Vienna, here in Austria. Yeah, I'm trying to cut those intros short and get right into it, so let's do that. Today we are going to react to another YouTube giant, at least in my eyes, a very popular YouTube instructor, and again an instructor that was suggested by one of you guys, one of my viewers, because you can always put something, in the comment section, so you can put a link there to a specific video or just name an instructor. I'm open for any suggestions here. Today we're gonna look at Rick Dior. Sir Rick Dior, as I call him, because he's kind of the sir of YouTube drum instruction. He's great. I have to say I'm a bit biased here because I love him. I love his channel. I've watched so many of his videos. As a matter of fact, I just watched another one of his videos earlier today when I was having lunch. He does a lot of gear review stuff as well as I do on my channel, talking about snares, drum kits and cymbals and everything, sticks. He does everything. But he also has a lot of instruction out there, a lot of lesson material. And I picked one again for this series. I'm always picking something that I have not seen before, that I'm really watching together with you first sight here, which is the tricky part. In the past, this has gone in multiple different directions already. But again, I'm trying to cut the intros short, so let's get right into it. Rick Dior, and the video is called Developing Good Sound and Touch on the Drum Set. Very interesting topic, a topic that not a lot of YouTubers talk about, because it's always about fast fills, fast techniques, and it's always like what I'm, again, not critiquing, but pointing out like the clickbait titles. 3 ways to get faster, do this and be the next great drummer this year. You only need to practice this one rudiment in 2025 and stuff like this. Not with Rick Dior. He is anti-clickbait. He is the anti-clickbait instructor, but still has a good amount of subscribers and views just because he's so good. He's genuine and he's good. He's not clickbait. He's not sensational, but he's totally legit and valid, and he's a great guy. So no wonder that people still, and thank God, people still find this channel very appealing and very attractive. So yeah, he's talking about good sound and touch on the drum set, not a clickbait title, very overall topic, very overlooked topic in YouTube education, I would say. And the video is like almost 19 minutes long. We're not gonna watch the whole thing, otherwise this reaction video would go on for like an hour or something. We're just gonna, zoom in and out here and there and see what's going on. But of course we will start right at the top, right now. Rick Dior. Let's go. Before we actually begin, I would really like you to know that the greatest form of support you can give me here on YouTube is actually subscribing to the channel. You can also leave a like or a comment if you want. That's like the extra cherry on top, but a subscription would be really, really good, really highly appreciated. That's what, keeps me going. That having said, Rick Dior is going to show us how to develop good sound and touch on the drum set. Let's go. All right, that's what we want to know here. Yeah, very nice open jazz playing, as in most of his intros. He always starts the videos with some playing, which is great because he's a great player. Very nice sound, very nice touch. Beautiful vintage Sonar kit. This is his second studio. Normally he's like kind of in his basement or something, but this is his other teaching studio, I would say, from watching his channel. All right, I'm gonna stop here for 1 second. Apparently, as I might already have anticipated, good sound and touch on a drum set, this might be like more jazz oriented, more jazz focused, which is, a broad term. It can be used for funk and soul and everything as well. also, but he's probably not gonna show us how to get a fill rod AC/DC tom sound in this video. That's not it. Good sound and touch on the drum set. Let's for now say more jazz oriented.
Hi, I'm Rick Dior, and I'm here today to talk about touch on the drum set.
He's so nice.
So touch is how you hit the drums. So there's lots of ways to hit the drums. You can hit the drums with your instinct, which is grab,
exactly,
hit, eat, or build, whatever. Our instinct is to grab something like that. If you ever give a stick to a child who's never held one, and I did this with my kids when they were little, just to prove my theory, and they never went like this. They never used their fingers. They always grabbed the stick.
Never used a fulcrum.
So that's in there. That's our instinct. We're born with that.
Good point. Put your thoughts down in the comments. Have you ever had a child, student, to whom you gave the sticks and they were holding the sticks like with a nice, fulcrum and a nice open hand? Did that ever happen? Or was it always kind of this, And that's another thing, I'm not gonna get into any debate about traditional grip versus matched grip. I did a video on that. You can watch it on my channel. I will link it somewhere here. But this is the argument that people always say, yeah, if you give a stick to a child, it will never hold it like this. Right, but it will also never hold it like this in a correct matched grip. It will probably hold it like this, and that's wrong either way. So yeah, let's continue.
And, a lot of drummers and even some professional players play like that, where they grab the stick like this. They don't use a lot of fingers. They're
probably
using a lot of arm.
Mostly rock drummers, probably.
That's fine if you want to play like that, but you won't be able to play all styles. You won't be able to play at different dynamic levels. And most importantly, you won't necessarily get a good sound out of the drums. And that's what we're talking about today, is sound quality, especially if you do a lot of recording or you play a lot of quiet gigs like I do in big halls, but you've got to play soft. Touch is the most important thing. So of
course, yeah. On the other hand, if you have a studio rock gig and you're using, for example, like big heavy toms with thick, hydraulic drum heads with lots of tape on it, it doesn't really matter that much anymore how you hold the drum stick. It will certainly affect your hand and your wrist and your arms. So it might get really taxing on your body. I'm stretching only thinking about it. It might get really taxing on your body holding the stick the wrong way. But on that kind of kit, it might not really change the sound all that much. But as he said, on a more jazz, open tuning jazz kit in a big hall, playing soft, playing quietly, touch is everything.
I was always taught not to use my wrist like this.
Right.
But to let the stick drop.
Exactly.
And that was
kind of the first drum lesson, my actual first drum lesson, and what I did with all my, child students. Where's the practice pad? Let me just grab that for 1 second. Would be, sitting on a snare, explaining how to hold the stick. If you use that kind of fulcrum or some other, it doesn't matter for now. Using kind of a fulcrum, being open, and just let the stick drop with as many bounces as possible. To find the good sweet spot. That's too far back on the stick. That's too far in front, etc. Letting the stick drop, letting the stick do the work. This should be everyone's first drum lesson. And I critiqued another video on this channel. This should be everyone's first drum lesson. And it was not that. Actually, I think that should be everyone's first drum lesson. How to hold the sticks and how to let them drop, being as relaxed as possible, getting as many bounces out of it as possible. This is the basis. This is the base, whether it's, in a German grip or also in French grip or traditional, it doesn't matter. That's letting the stick fall, and then the rest you do is just following the stick, but then I'm not going to do a technique lesson here. But that's what it is. Don't play like this. Let the stick do the work, Follow the natural physical thingy that the stick does.
The stroke. So that basic stroke of dropping doesn't create force. And force is what creates distortion. On an instrument as loud as the drums, you know, you don't need to work hard to play loud on the drums. They're loud.
Small veto here. If you're Rick Dior and if you do what he does, yes, 100%. You do not need to work hard to play loud. Actually, what you will naturally do might already be too loud. You have to concentrate to bring it down rather. But again, of course, there are gigs, that's why I say small veto. There are gigs where you have to hit really hard. If you play with a big rock band in a big arena and you're getting a great sound like this, nice. But that might be what people want to hear, but it will certainly not be what people want to see. They want to see this kind of action, and that takes a lot of work and force in order to play it not forcefully and not, you know, destroying yourself. So playing really loud is hard, but again, for a Rick Dior kind of situation, and that's also more the field where I'm in, I never have to work hard to play loud. Most of the gigs I show up, people ask me to bring it down, you know. So if you really like playing acoustically, and it's not only about jazz, it's like acoustic, normal stage volume without, you know, stadium stuff happening, without, you know, plexiglass or in-ears or stuff. In those cases, you don't have to work hard to play loud, 100%.
No matter what, you just drop the stick on a snare, it's going to be louder than a flute or an oboe.
Like in an orchestral context, yeah? If you drop a stick like this on a snare and you're playing with the Foo Fighters in the stadium, they're going to turn around and say, dude, hit harder. Sure. But maybe I'm just being a dick again, but you know, there's different kinds of situations, and if you really want to cover it all, you have to talk about that. But again, for a Rick Dior kind of situation, letting the stick fall will already be a loud sound.
And people are going to do this no matter what. Sometimes people in the orchestra just look at the drums and they do this, even if I'm not playing. So
that's true, and that has literally happened to me before. I play a lot with orchestras, and man, the things I experienced with orchestral musicians, at some point I might do a whole video on that. I could talk about orchestra experience for hours, especially that part of relationship that you have with the other classically trained people in the orchestra.
They're recognized with noise and loudness, but they don't have to be that way. Okay, so there's an art to playing quietly, and you'll get a lot of gigs too if you can play quietly. A lot more gigs than you get if you have two dynamic levels, which most drummers have. It's just loud and then louder. Those are their dynamic levels. But you really...
Again, depends, of course, what kind of work you want to do, but as a general drummer, if you want to, you know, do the whole thing, playing jazz, playing pop, playing rock, playing theater, playing weddings, playing background gigs, also playing some bigger shows and stuff as well. But if you really want to cover it all, people will really appreciate if you can play quietly as well, 100%.
You need to be able to play very, very quietly.
Is that very, very quietly though? This might already, you know, for a background jazz gig.
I consider that moderate.
Where people are,
Moderately quiet, but if I was going to play that
quiet.
loud,
yeah.
It's like this.
This is more like stadium rock.
So you
stadium jazz, excuse me. This is more like big stage jazz gig, you know?
Hear the difference here. Now, if you play really, really quiet.
Which in Austria, where I live, might already be too loud for some gigs, because Austrians in that way are really kind of bitchy. You know, we Austrians, people, especially from the US, often criticize our drummers for not being able to hit hard enough. But on the other hand, nobody can play as quietly as we can, because we've heard it. We've heard it on every freaking gig. Bring it down, bring it down. Bring it down!
That's one of the hardest things to do as a drummer, is to play really fast and really quiet. Fortunately, I learned to do that. I think a long time ago I did a video on playing fast.
Playing fast quietly
I couldn't do it, and it frustrated me when I was a kid.
Mechanically
worked and worked and worked.
Very
and
challenging.
Luckily, I learned the right way, which is you drop the stick and then you use your fingers
And you
to
follow
propel
it. Yeah. Dropping and following with your fingers. And this will always sound better than, forcing something out of the cymbal,
So you see that motion.
Beautiful.
It's not this.
Because the second the cymbal starts opening up like this, it's gone. You're not only too loud, also it's not articulate anymore. You lose your phrasing, That's a wrong phrasing.
I see some people doing, and it's definitely not this. Okay, the wrist
Playing into it with the wrist, that's not it either.
is a small part of what you do, especially as a drummer who plays lots of dynamics. That full wrist stroke is deadly. You don't want to do that, okay? Again, if you want to be able to play all styles.
I would actually really say, also for playing loud, so for now playing stadium rock again, this would not be my motion of choice. It would be like a molar thing from the arm, from the shoulder. That way you get the punch. This way, you're destroying your wrist in no time. I'm telling you, this is not... Be careful with your wrist. Wrist, of course, we use the wrist, but not for force, not for power. That's here. And for quiet stuff, it's also, more like a loose approach and some fingers. But again, this is not my technique lesson here.
It shouldn't be happening. It's basically movement is what you want.
Beautiful. Understanding how the stick moves.
So let's talk about that and let's analyze it. So when I'm doing my stroke, I start like this, okay? We're pivoting, just so you know. So I don't normally play like that. That's unnatural for me. I'll play knuckle up to the ceiling.
And then he goes
and
to
then
the
when I go
cymbal
over
like
here,
this.
I'll just bend my head.
A lot of
Now, I'm not
people
doing that. I'm not upside
recommend
down.
that.
Okay, like that. And
True.
I'm also gravitating between these two positions, here and here.
So yeah, this is kind of more like a jazz lesson. He's showing us the
And I'm
up-tempo right
moving
cymbal
in a
pattern.
circular motion.
I mean, there's many different ways to play that. He's moving in a circular motion. Other people teach it differently, but this is a great approach and it sounds beautiful. It sounds beautiful.
So that motion is... And what happens is that circular motion offsets the force. So it's
Talking
not
about
all in one
motions, it's
area
so
like
underrated,
this.
Not only about technique, molar technique, wrist technique, like motion. This is this motion. It works like this, There's another motion that goes like this. And, talking about motions is really underrated. And I try to incorporate this more in my teachings because, you get that sound or you get that phrase with that motion. You do that and the stick will do that. It's a great approach.
If you do all those notes in one area, the cymbal is going to build up, especially if you're working with a hammered cymbal. I play a lot of old Ks, but I'm up here in my other studio today.
That's what I said.
And I just have, not my best cymbals up here, but I have this Meinl cymbal. It's fine. It's 22.
Meinl.
I have a Dream cymbal here and an All Day Crash here. So these aren't old Ks, but again, this is a hammered cymbal, and it reacts like that. It'll fight back. All right, so you have to kind of ride the wave. So don't stay in one area on the cymbal.
Beautiful. This is now talking about, he's not talking about the right cymbal and how to keep that sounding good and nice. But as we've said, we're gonna skip ahead a little bit because this goes on for a while and I want to try to keep it short. Let's see what will, he's on the tom now or something.
And 75% fingers.
Okay, more about the motion.
So you see there, I'm playing very, very loud. I probably distorted the meters or the recording here, but I am not pounding. I'm not digging into the drums, which
Right.
makes them sound bad. So you can play incredibly
Especially
loud, but
those kind of
relaxed
drums, in that
and
tuning
have it
and
sound great. I used to love going to watch Omar Hakim in the 80s. He was in New York, and I'd see him play, and he had big, tall guy, long arms, but just a beautiful stroke.
yeah.
That kind of almost Mueller-like
Yeah,
stroke.
sure.
That's relaxed. It's a beautiful thing to see and hear. Will Kennedy is another one who did a lot of
yeah.
these kind of fusion jazz drummers. If they play like that, it's a beautiful thing. The sound is great. Play with tons of chops. Okay, so these are the things.
Okay, let's just scroll here.
And go from drum to get the feeling of regulating that. And that's a big part of touch, is regulating the way that you're using your fingers. But the simple kind of rock grooves like this.
Okay, nice. Now we're in a different
Certainly
style.
possible to play all that stuff wrong.
Yeah,
tight,
that's what we said
But if you
earlier.
want to play loose,
Yeah, obviously he's now playing a different groove with lots of more stuff to it, but that's kind of the approach, being loose, you can actually, you have a better sound, it sounds more open, it sounds bigger, fatter, and you will naturally, ghost notes and articulations just start to come by themselves, kind of, instead of, if you're like tight, that's it, basically, yeah.
I recently watched that Becoming Led Zeppelin.
And he's a great rock drummer, but he's more that kind of John Bonham, old school, heavy, big bass drum with two closed heads tuned up and playing out of the kick drum. He's more kind of this vintage classic rock drummer, but he can do that as well, But again, if you want to have like a Steve Gadd 80s studio sound, or like a Foo Fighters sound, or like a AC/DC Phil Rudd sound, that's a different topic. That's a different kind of sound, That would be a different kind of video.
It was great, right? There was so much great footage of John Bonham that I'd never seen before. I thought I saw everything, but I hadn't. Playing live and, doing his whole moving around thing. But John Bonham played really loose. If you watch him, he never played like that. He was incredibly loose, and that's probably why he had such an incredible pocket, deep pocket. And even though he played loud as hell, his sound was great.
His sound was huge.
Great sound,
Yeah.
and incredibly powerful. John Bonham, to me, had the original relaxed groove rock feel going, where it was like...
Amen. So loud, but big, fat, powerful. Because if it's like loud, but it's like stiff and, and like this and forced, the sound gets thin, Most professional drummers know that, but if you are not a professional drummer, if you're a hobby drummer just starting out or whatever, you might not know this already. The louder you play, the thinner the sound gets when you're not relaxed. If you have relaxation and everything is open, your sound will be big and fat. If you start doing this, it will be loud, but it also will be very thin. It will be like, that's not what we want. Be loose, be open, play out of the drums, have a big fat sound. Bonham, as I've said, big, huge, 24-inch, 26-inch, whatever, big, huge kick drum, with two closed heads, tuned up high, toms, big toms, 13, 16, 18, but, tuned up high and, big open,
And incredibly loud, but relaxed, all right? So you can move around as much as you want. A lot of that is show, right? But your hands, look at the hands and what they're doing. Now, the good thing about this, your touch and the way you play, it gives you longevity. I mean, I'm in my 60s, and I have no fall off at all. I think I play better than I've ever played.
That's great.
So I've been playing, since I was like 8 years old. So, do the math, a long time. And I feel great.
That's because he's relaxed and he has great technique.
I'm getting old, so, I don't always feel great, but my body feels good when I'm playing. That's what's important. And that's what this is going to give you. So touch is a huge part of playing the instrument correctly. So once again, for dynamics, for speed, and for sound, the most important thing. Lastly, I want to talk about some exercises that you can do.
Okay, we're going to watch this part for
besides
just a
the rolls
moment.
that will help with your touch. So one thing I like to do is just triplets where I'm going right, left, left, right, left, left, right, left, left, or stickings like that. So
Polyrhythmic hi-hat figure. Kind of getting that evenness.
So what I'm doing there is
the
I'm going right, left, left, right, left, left, or right, right, left, right, right, left. Those are the two stickings. So those stickings are very good for bouncing. You got one note and then two notes. That's bounce. That's a great exercise for touch.
Interesting, yeah. And you move around the kit, you know, different surfaces, you adapt. Try to get a good sound everywhere, hitting the toms in the middle.
So if we do that quicker with a little ostinato again.
Yeah, killer. What else do we have? Nice. Yeah, he often does that. That samba ostinato is killer. Okay, I guess some more outro playing here. Maybe some final words, but we're gonna cut it off here. I don't want this to be too long. This again has just been a spontaneous, impromptu, first time view of this video together with you guys, and just, you know, sharing my thoughts and blabbering about in also English, which is not my first language. So, but I'm trying my best here to get across my thoughts right on the spot. But there's nothing bad to say here. I mean, Rick Dior, Sir Rick Dior. He's the man. Please support him. Go check out his channel and subscribe to his channel. Lots of great lessons, gear reviews. And if you want to have information about this kind of music, you know, jazz, open touch, warm sound, he's the man. He's also a classical percussionist. He did a lot of, you know, theater work and maybe also some movie work as a classical percussionist. There's a whole video series on his channel where he's playing Wicked, the musical, but the percussion part. The whole show, you can watch it, you know, in his practice room when he prepared for another national tour playing that. So that's what he does. Also, he's like a jazz vintage guy, but he's also like a classical percussionist, and with great technique, great touch, great sound, great information, great instruments that he's showing us. Great guy. One of the greats here on YouTube, for sure. Enough said, let's wrap this up. Go check out Rick Dior. Again, if you like what I do here, please consider subscribing to my channel. Check out all the stuff I do here. I do a lot of different stuff. For example, a 17-episode, completely free course on hand technique. Thanks for the support. And this was fun. Until next time,